this is a wonderful resource. I'm kind of the opposite of Sally's experience. I worked for 6 to 7 years. I worked for an angel investor, and that was a very small community where we were working with venture capitalists and private equity guys at the height of the dot-com. So things were flying, and it was a really exciting time. And then the dot-com bubble burst, and my father forced me to go into healthcare. And healthcare is a totally different beast here in New England. Here in Boston, it's extremely competitive, and nobody has the time for mentorship. So you have to not only find the time, but you have to find someone who is going to want to invest that time in you. The other thing that's really hard is that there aren't that many Black Africans who are in roles that you want to pursue. So healthcare administrators, and that's the space that I was in, although I was mainly working with chiefs of departments and medical doctors, medical directors, and residents, so medical education. I didn't have women that were my age, so mid-30s to early 40s, that were African, that were Black, that I could go to and talk to. So it's very lonesome. And when I did, you approached women, the women were not very embracing. However, when I was working in finance, it's the total opposite. They want to support you. My former boss, who this lovely lady knows, he is one of my biggest supporters. I talked to him, I sent him an email about 2 weeks ago, and he was like, okay, kiddo, what's the deal? What are you doing? Let's talk about it, right? And it's totally different. And I think that one of the things that's really amazing about the Phenomenal Women Conference, the mission of supporting other women along as you go, it's really critical, because you would be so blessed to work with a young woman who's just starting out in her career. They're very ambitious, they've got great ideas, but they're so quick because of lack of time. You've got way too many meetings on your calendar, and you just don't have the time. And then of course the green-eyed bandit kicks in, right? So, oh, she's gonna wanna have my job in 5 years.
Terrible. Do you want to close?
Yes, no.
Before I snatch the mic. Close.
So I just think that the mentoring part, it's very hard depending on the industry that you're in. As an entrepreneur, right now, the mentors that I've arrived and I've received and I've met are really what's driving me and keeping me going, in addition to the many people that I've spoken with who suffer with iron deficiency anemia.
Yeah, what Irene was mentioning about the sort of green-eyed monster, you may have seen that in your workplaces, right? Where women above you may not want to mentor you because they see you as competition. First, I think we gotta cut that out, and it starts with everyone in this room, right? That every single one of you can leave the ladder down for the young women behind you and not pull it up behind when you get there, right? And so it starts with all of us, and it starts with calling out that behavior, because of course we're taught, we live in this patriarchy, right? We're taught that there's only a couple of spots at the top for women, but we have to break that down and not take that excuse. Is I think the first step around mentoring, is that you all can be mentors for folks younger than you or below you or coming here who don't know how to start in your industry today, tomorrow, the next day. So I think that that's really, really important. The other thing is, a couple of days ago, an elected official here in Boston, Rachel Rollins, who's incredible, if you don't know of her or about her, was quoted by saying, you need to be an ally, or not, don't be just an ally, be an accomplice. And I think about that when I think about mentoring, right? That it's not just, well, let me give you some pieces of advice that I got and I'm gonna pass on, but what am I gonna do that's gonna help you? How can I use some of my power and privilege in whatever position I'm in to get you there? I mentioned earlier, I'm a white presenting woman of color, and I carry white privilege, and I will use that to my advantage to help other folks who may need a foot in the door. So I always think about young women of color that I can get into spaces of power so they can be introduced to other folks that they may not be able to get there otherwise. So use your positions of power and privilege to help others around you.
All right. Do we have any time for questions?
Yes, you 2 power questions.
2 power questions.
Power questions. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Hi everyone. So my name is Diana. I am, I'm not gonna say who I am, but I'm just gonna say I'm very blessed and I'm very happy to be here. I almost did not come because I have a little person and I was like, I had a date for her and I'm like, women conference, a date with my little one. But then eventually I was like, you know what, women conference, and I'm so glad that I'm here. I don't know much about this yet. I'm gonna look it up obviously, but I wanted two questions actually. One is that besides this, is this something that happens annually? Because if not, we really need that. That's one. The other thing is there a goal on bridging this gap with African continent? Like, is there that vision of, you know, taking all these skills and all this strength and go back and impact our continent? So that's one question. The other question is a personal one because I'm actually very desperate and I'm sorry. So right now I'm on a transformational journey currently, and I was talking to one of my friends and I told her, actually, we just met today, she became my friend. And we were sharing, we were personally sharing. So right now I'm on a transformational journey. I recently left my job and I'm 3 weeks away from traveling back to Uganda. I've been in America for like 12 years and now I'm like, no, maybe it's a mental background, I don't know. Maybe it's a mental background, I don't know. So I decided to pack my bags and go back home. And one, I have a suitcase full of books, and then the other suitcase is my clothes. And my plan is to go home, rent a room, read until I figure out what the hell I am. So that's my second question, is there anybody in here who's been through that? I'm desperate here. And is there someone who's willing to talk to me about that journey if they've been in that state? So I can touch on this. 2016, December of 2016, I walked away from Boston Children's Hospital to pursue my goal of being an entrepreneur full-time and also finish my MBA at Babson. It was really hard, really hard. But the one thing that I did is that all of my doctors that I had great relationships with, all of my fellows, which is everyone, all of the administrators, all of the administrative assistants, all of the patient care providers, the nurses, the clinical surgeons, everybody. I left them a small little thank you note. I want to point out something. We come from a culture as Africans where we're ingrained to be polite, right? Don't be afraid to harness that old thing that our parents raised us to be graceful and grateful. Because when you do that, don't be afraid to say, you know what? I am going back home I need a break. Keep in touch with them, right? And these are some of the things that have helped me, because especially when you decide to come back and you need to get a job, and you need to get a reference, now you can actually, in your own subtle way, reconnect with these people. And they're not gonna remember the 3 years that you spent with them where you had ups and downs. They're gonna remember that small little note that you left them that said, you know what, I really enjoyed working with you. I'm moving on to a new chapter, but I'd love for us to keep in touch. Those little things are what's going to help you maintain relationships and eventually gain those relationships with mentees, as a mentee and a mentor. So that's your strategy.
Thank you. Very nice, Irene. But also I'm going to encourage other people in the audience who would love to connect with her. Please feel free. And also about the vision of the organization, I believe Lisa is already setting up other pop-up conferences have happened in different locations. So Geneva, Uganda, Zimbabwe, so, and the list is continuing. And she would really love partners to keep the Boston One annual, So I'm glad for your excitement. Okay?